All right, so let's go over the questions concerning limiting reagents. Remember that these ones are not a really hard math problem like the last ones were. But what this one does do is, you probably noticed when you were doing these questions, is you have to think about what stoichiometry actually is talking about. That's the hard part to this one. You have to do some application stuff. So don't be surprised. Don't beat yourself up if you're like, man, this was really, really hard. And yet he says the math is really easy. Yep, the math is easy. It's just trying to apply how this works is really hard. So we start with the first one. Now remember, there's 3 questions with each one. The first question is, which is the limiting reagent? The second part is, how much excess reagent do we have left? And the third thing is, how much product will be formed? So we have to do 3 questions for each one. All right, so the very first one, we've got the balanced equations on the board behind me. And it says we got 3.6 moles of aluminum. So we got 3.6 moles of this, and we got 5.3 moles of Cl2. All right, so that's what they gave us. Now remember, according to the notes, the issue here is that neither one of them is X. So what we have to do is we have to choose one of them and make it X. Doesn't matter to me which one. You guys could tell me right now, but I don't want to wait for you to email me, so I'm going to pick. So we're going to go with this guy. So we'll make the Cl2 X. Right? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to ignore the 5.3 and solve this just like we would have way back at the beginning of this chapter, where you would have been given 3.6 moles of this and try and find X moles of Cl2. So according to that, right, we're doing this very first equation thing, which means we got to look at the balanced equation. So it's 2, oops, wrong color. Keep the colors the same. So from the balanced equation, I've got, use the right color. Man, there it is. All right, let me try this again. 2 moles of Al combines with 3 moles of Cl2. All right, so that came from the balanced equation. That's why I wanted to make sure it was black, so you can see that that's where it came from. And then we don't have 2 moles of Al, we have 3.6 moles of Al. And we want to find out that new X moles of Cl2. All right, so cross multiply and solve this. We get 2 times X equals 3 times 3.6. Divide by 2, and X ends up equaling, let's see, I used a different one. So I gotta do this one, use my calculator to solve this one. No big deal. So I gotta go 3 times 3.6 equals, and then divided by 2. So the answer is 5.4. So this is 5.4 moles of Cl2. So that says that if I use all 3.6 moles of aluminum, I need 5.4 moles of this. Do I have that? No, I don't know. I got 5.3. So that means this guy right there, that is my limiting reagent. Okay? So now it means, oh, you know what that means? That means I chose the wrong one at the very beginning, because in order to do all my problems after this, I have to use the number of the limiting reagent, and I use this number. So we're going to have to go back and redo this then. So let's go back and redo it with the other one. So now what we're going to do is, instead of making this X, we're going to make this X. All right, so now we're going to redo this, and we've actually got 5.3 moles of Cl2, because that's what they gave us. And we're going to find out, if I use all that, how many moles of aluminum do I need? So cross multiply and solve this. 3 times X equals 2 times 5.3. Divide by 3, and X equals, and this time I have this answer, that's 3.53, and that's moles of Al. So that says over here I'm going to use 3.53 moles of that. Okay. Now again, just to make sure that I still get the same limiting reagent, it says if I use all 5.3 of this, I need 3.53 of this guy. Do I have that? Yeah, I sure do. I got a little bit extra even. So that means, yeah, this guy is my limiting reagent, and that's what we said. That's the limiting reagent. All right, so we go on to the next question, part to it, and that was, how much excess reagent do I have? Well, they gave me 3.6 moles of aluminum, and I am going to use 3.53 moles of aluminum. So I'm going to subtract those two. So that's going to give me like 0.07 moles of aluminum excess. That's how much I got left over. All right, now I go to the last question. The last question says, well, how much product can be made? So we want to know X moles of that guy, way over there. Now use blue for this. So we've got to go, we're going to use the balanced equation. I got to use my limiting reagent, so it's 3 moles of Cl. We'll make 2 moles of AlCl3. So I got for my balanced equation 3 moles of this, we'll make 2 moles of that. All right, and that's why that's in black. Let me turn this so we can keep it. There we go. So then I go to, well, I don't have 3 moles of this guy, I got 5.3 moles of Cl2. And we want to find blue X moles of AlCl3. All right, now I'll uncover, I'm kind of standing in front of it, ain't I? All right, let's cross multiply. 3 times X equals 2 times 5.3. Divide by 3, divide by 3. And X is going to equal, it's going to equal 3.53. And that's moles of AlCl3. That's funny that was the same number that we got. Oops. Sorry, let me get that down where you can see it. There it is. There's the answer. That's kind of funny. That's the same answer that we got over here, isn't it? Well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? But notice that this ratio is 3 to 2. All right, so there's my 3 and 2. And this one over here was 3 to 2. All right, so that's why the ratio was the same. That's why it ended up giving me the same number of moles. Now remember, moles is like dozens, so it's like I got the same amount of dozens of compound. All right, so it's not impossible to get the same number. All right, but you still got to do all the calculations in order to find it out. All right, well that was the first one. So let's go on to the second one. Second one, we're changing the recipe. So we got to get rid of everything. And remember the recipe? That's the balanced equation. So I got to erase all of this. All right, we start with a new recipe, which happens to be 2H2 plus O2 will form 2H2O. We're making water. All right, from there they gave us, in red, we got 6.4 moles of H2. So we got 6.4 moles of that guy. And we got 3.4 moles of O2. All right, now I don't want you to get tricked into the idea and go, well, oh, that's the smaller number, so that must be the limiting reagent. Don't always assume that. Sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't. You got to do the calculations in order to find out. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to choose one of them. Well, which one shall we choose? I don't know. This time I'm going to make sure I get my numbers so I don't have to do it in math. But all right, well, let's make, we're going to make this guy my X. So we're going to make O2 my X. All right. So because we're going moles of this to moles of that, we're going to use our balanced equation of 2 moles of H2 combined with 1 mole of O2. So that's in black because that came from the balanced equation. Then I don't have 2 moles of H2, I got 6.4. So I'm going to go 6.4 moles of H2. And that, we're going to find out how many moles of O2 are needed to combine with that. So from there, cross multiply. 2 times X equals 1 times 6.4. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and X is going to equal 3.2 moles of O2. So that says, again, this is where, like I said, at the beginning of this, you have to like think about how this works. It says if I use all 6.4 moles of this, I need 3.2 moles of O2. Do I have that? Oh yeah, I got a lot of it. I got 3.4. I only need 3.2. I got some extra. I got some extra left over. That's the next question, isn't it? So we know now, and I'm going to circle this, we know that this guy right here, that is my limiting reagent. That's the one I got to use for all my calculations, which the good part is I already did. So I don't have to go back and redo this one, all right? So we're going to go to the next part. Next part, how much excess do I have? Well, excess, they gave me 3.4 moles of O2. I'm going to use 3.2. So I'm going to subtract those. I get 0.2 moles of O2 excess or extra. So that's what I have excess. All right, now the last part of this question is I got to say, well, how much water am I going to make? All right, and according to that, I got to use this one over here. I got to use that quantity. So I'm going to use, according to the balanced equation, 2 moles of H2 will make 2 moles of H2O. And then I have 6.4 moles of H2, and we want to find out in blue, X moles of H2O that'll be made. So from there, cross multiply. Those of you know math already, this is really a 1-to-1 ratio, 2 over 2. But 2 times X equals 2 times 6.4. Divide both sides by 2 to get X by itself. Well, there it is, they divide out each other. So we get 6.4, and that's moles of H2O that'll be made. So there's my answer. All right. So, and again, like I said, the math on this is not too hard. This will be the only way I'm going to do limiting reagents. It'll always be mole to mole, right? But you have to like think about what they're trying to say, what's being done, right? And that's what makes these ones hard, is you have to really think about them. So, all right, well, I'm going to go to part number 2 because I'm almost going to be out of time. So we'll see you in part number 2 for the last question.